welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, please hit like. A gentleman came to my door yesterday with a Tupperware container with stuff in it. So, any guess what the stuff is yet before I open this up? Let's have a look. Let's put this watch stuff on and have a look. What is this stuff? This is stuff. So, what this is called is a platform balance. I'm just going to dive in here and grab this. So these balances were typically or traditionally made for carriage clocks. But he is saying that this platform balance, a specific platform balance, is made for a clock. So it sits on the top, I guess. And BRITIS, British. It says British made, arrow. So what we have here is a crazy platform balance. Let me look at this here. And the problem he has with this, let me just zoom in here for a second. The problem he has with this is the upper pivot on this balance is broken, which is not good. He says that everything else seems to be good, which means the escape wheel that you're looking at there and the pallet fork are good. I actually, for the same guy, I pivoted one of these escape wheels with the pinion. It had broken pivots on both sides. That was a while back. And then he has the these jewels for the top and bottom, so this escape wheel would go on like this and like this into the jewel hole, and the pallet fork would be on the other side. So if you look at that, you'll see that this looks like it's a double roller, and I don't know if the rollers are attached or separate. With any luck, they're attached and not separate, but they often are separate as well. So, and there's an impulse jewel I can see there as well. So to do this job properly, he wants me to repivot this. So as you can see, those little dents there, that's somebody machining metal out of the balance so that they could actually balance the balance. I call it that. I say it that way, right? So, and you machine the metal out. You actually have to grave the metal out of the balance to do that. So I need to actually strip the balance before I can do anything with this watch. And to strip the balance, I need to put the balance into here. I need to take off the hairspring. And to take off the hairspring, I wonder if that fits in there. Yeah, it does. To take off the hairspring, I think I want a little bit more real estate for this. So I want it right there, should be fine. I'll use a pair of screwdrivers to take the hairspring off, but if I look at this balance, the balance staff on the top is broken. Once I get the hairspring off, I'm going to measure the balance staff on the bottom to see if it's still intact or is this broken as well. So let's move the hairspring of this watch first. I'm going to mark it so I know where to put that back after. So as it is with most watches, the jewel is on this side and the stud is on this side. And the jewel is 90 degrees to these arms. This is what you typically have on your pocket watch balance. So this is, I just need to put a dot down here so it's as accurate as I can get it. It's not too bad. If I look at it, it's pretty level with the dot. It's not a bad little dot. Slightly off, but not that much off. So the hairspring, the stud would go just a bit more towards the arm, but it might not make a difference at all. So just put a red dot on there so I can have identified where that goes. As well, I want to take the rest of this stuff and put this away where it's safe. So I'm just going to grab this and put this into a watch case here and put the top off. And I'm sure the gentleman will want his Tupperware container back. I'm very carefully examining this hairspring and the stud. Interesting configuration. So the gentleman told me, he said, don't worry if you for some reason ruined the whole thing. Please don't feel guilty, because it's not an issue, because he would have had to buy a brand new one for, he said, $225 US plus shipping plus everything else. So I'm going to try to, I think the word is prise the stud off here. This thing is a bugger. It doesn't seem to want to just naturally come off. I'm putting a bit of pressure on it to get it to rise up. I think I got it. I think I got it. And what I'm going to do here is I'll get it up to a certain distance, and then I've got to get a bigger screwdriver, because this other screwdriver is too small to make it rise. So just get a bigger one for this side and go underneath like that. And now I should be able to turn the screwdriver and it'll come up and out. I need a bigger screwdriver for both sides. I'll just flip it to the other side and go from there. And just have to be very careful and mindful of where everything is. So that's the hairspring. So let me just remove that. There we go. This is like surgery, man. Surgery. I'm going to put this right here so it's out of the way. So there we go. That is out of the way. Now, before I start farting, that's the technical term for playing with. Before I start farting with this roller table, I'm going to look at this under the microscope and see what I've got, because I don't know what I've got. Let me have a look. Just zoom it in for you there. Look at that. There we go. Now the pivot is not bad on one side, but it's terrible on the other side. Terrible. And in order to work this, to repivot this side, if that's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to make a new balance staff for this, I'm going to have to remove that roller table. And I don't know, I don't think it's one piece, but it might be. Again, I'm going to look under the microscope to see if there's a line, or this cut was cut as one piece. Because if it's cut as one piece, then I can punch it out from the top. Even if it's two pieces, I can still punch it out from the top. And the tool I would use to do that with is my roller table remover tool. Is usually this one right here, right? Because I can put this in like so, and this is a bigger roller table. I can put it in like that and then punch it from the top, and no problem. And this one here is way too small. That won't fit. So this one fits. So I might use this tool. It depends on. I'm just a little nervous about every time I do this job here. I'm nervous because, first of all, you want to make sure that your pivot is safe. So when I put the stake down on top of the pivot, I want to make sure it's clear. I'd rather do it on my staking set so I know that it's going to come straight off. But I'd have to find my claws for my staking set, so I may go hunting here. I may be wrong, but I doubt it. I doubt it. So I found this, and let's open this up and have a look at what this is. So this, I've got every tool ever made for watchmaking, I think. So these little beaver teeth are made for removing roller tables. So here are the beaver teeth that are used for removing roller tables, and here are the punches. And these are just prodding arms or something. I'm not sure what those are, but these are the beaver teeth. So the way this works is that the roller table fits into the beaver teeth. The beaver teeth fit into this jobby doohickey here, and then this jobby doohickey, thingamajiggy jobby doohickey actually, it has something missing. I think there's something that needs to screw in on the end here, but because when you turn this, it would compress it. Oh, actually it does turn. Look at that. So it's threaded. These are threaded on the bottom, I think. Maybe. There's a thread there, and there's a thread, I think, on the bottom of this thing. Yeah. So they're threaded on the bottom. Let me get this out of the way here so you can see this. So these are neat tools. I may make this, call this a tool video. So there's the threading on both sides. And this goes in like that. And then you put this into the staking set and turn it until it grabs. So let's try that out. All right, we're going to go up close and dirty here. So here's the staking set. You loosen it back here. Then you take the beaver tooth and you find the hole it fits in, which is this hole right here, I believe. I think you can also put it in this hole, but no, that doesn't work. It fits in this hole, and it goes all the way in like that. And then you're tightening this here to basically close the beaver teeth. Oh, I know what you do. I know what's going on here. This jobby doohickey here sticks in the end and keeps this steady as you're tightening the beaver teeth to close the jaws. See how the jaws are closing now in the beaver teeth? Beaver teeth jaw closure. So that's for that. And you want to line this up first so everything is perfectly aligned. So the first thing you do is you get out the centering stake like that, and not the sipe steak you eat for dinner. Okay, there's my centering stake, and it's centered like that. And then you put the beaver teeth in here. I think it's kind of funny, look like rat teeth or something, right? And this is a big roller table, so I think I'll just put this roller table in there. It floats on top. I think this is the biggest beaver teeth that this thing has. So this roller table would go inside here somehow. Let me fart with this for a second and make sure I don't screw it up. So this would go in like this. Yeah, I got my lens too far away. And I'm just seeing if that goes in and doesn't interfere. It would go in like so, at an angle like that. And then you would go upward like this. And I'm trying to see if that interferes with, so I've got to open up the beaver teeth a bit here. So if I hold this and then twist the teeth, that'll open it up a bit. And then that allows me to put it in like this. And then I can close the beaver teeth. Close in on the beaver teeth. Like this. Now I'm looking at the bottom part. That's where the broken staff is, so I'm not too concerned there, because it'll just remain broken. So there's the setup. Right there. That looks pretty good there. So my question is that in as far as that can go? Like, is that in good enough that it's going to punch this out with the least amount of stress? And I think the answer is yes, because it's pretty tight in there. It's about as tight as I can get it, and without bending the table. So now the stake I have, it has a number of stakes with it, so I'm not sure whether these stakes are adequate. The stakes look like this, and they have a punch-out hole in the side, and they're like that. So, and there's two stakes. I'm going to just put this one down and see how far over the pivot this stake goes. No, that's kind of poopy. That doesn't go very far over the pivot, so I'm going to get my other stakes out here. My 3 other stakes, and see if any of them are better. This big one might be the best one because this is a big clock. Yeah, that fits right over the pivot, as you can see. Fits over the pivot, and it aligns up. So I'm going to take a picture of this first before I destroy it, and hopefully I don't have a problem here with the roller table. There we go. Now I get my hammer out because it's hammer time. And I have to tap on this and everything should come out. What do you think? 2 taps and it's out. Look at that. You got to be brave when you do this, by the way, because every time you do something like this, you're like, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break it. So there we go. The roller table is off, and I think it is a single piece, which is nice. There's a roller table as a single piece, like that, with the jewel intact, which is nice as well. And I might put a little bit of shellac on the top of that jewel as well for the servicing. So I'm going to put that in the jar. You heard that drop. And now I've got this, which I'm going to take out. I really like this roller remover. I'm a fan of this roller remover now. Before I wasn't a fan because I really didn't know how well it worked. So there we go. So I can undo that now. Like that. And then these are my instructional videos. Hope you enjoy these. Hey, a little shout out to Sonny Morehouse. He was asking why I would retire from the most perfect job. Today, I'm thinking, and no offense at all, Sonny, you can basically say anything to me. I cannot get offended in any manner, by the way. It's in my nature. This is my stake that I took. I got this from the other tool, so I'll show you these 2 tools in a second. And then this comes up like that. This tool is really good because you can run it with you can use this on your staking set, so everything is absolutely accurate. So I'll put this back to its place. It's one of the jaws. And then this goes in here. So this is the beaver teeth roller remover. I've given it a new name. The BTRM, the beaver teeth roller remover. So that's that. This is a wooden case, by the way, which is kind of cool. And I don't think it has a bottom to it. No, it's just a wooden case. And then a wooden lid that goes on the case. They made really neat cases back in the old days. They just made these out of wood. How? I don't know. I suspect there were carpenters working in watchmaking repair shops. Good joke. So I really didn't need to use this one here, although this one here I've used a million times. But the other one was more appropriate because of the size of that balance. And now what I need to do now, let me get an old piece of dumpy Rodico here so I don't have to worry about the pivots. This mat here is perfect though for things, so it's getting a bit dirty, but it's a perfect mat. So there is the balance for this clock. I don't even know what this clock looks like, by the way, because the gentleman, he told me that I did a job for him 2.5 years ago. He said, you did a job for me where I repivoted a clock, a carriage clock balance. And I have a beautiful carriage clock, by the way, so I should do a little review on that. I'm not sure if I ever made a video of the carriage clock, but I stripped it down and I cleaned it up and I put it back together and it runs impeccably. So that's the carriage clock. So there's the balance there. Now what I want to do, I'm going to attempt to repivot this balance, okay? It's not this side, it's the other side. My going in assumption is that the pivot on the other side is exactly the same size as the pivot on this side. So I'm making that as very bold assumption. And this would mean, you just stick this in like this into the Rodico. There it is there, that's the broken pivot on that side. This would mean I have to face that off, find a piece of metal, measure this, and then determine, what size am I looking at here. So what I have here is a deuxième gauge. It's called a deuxième gauge, and the bottom part, I believe, is in twelfths. So, and those are, I believe, twelfths of an inch. There's a gentleman that I know from a watch society who knows a bit more about this than I do, but these are in twelfths of an inch. But right now, the deuxième gauge is, and it can be reset. It's set for millimeters. So right there are millimeters. So that's 10 millimeters right there. That's 5 millimeters. So if I measure the shaft here of this, I can see how many millimeters this is. So let's get the shaft measuring out here. All right, I've got one of my cameras up pretty close, and you can see the camera I have right here. And it's got a ring light on it, and I've got the other camera pointing straight down. You can see that. And so when I measure this, the deuxième gauge, I'm grabbing the shaft with this size, and I'm opening up this and measuring it. So that's how this works. So if I move this over a bit, you'll be able to see it a lot better. So let's just put it right here, and that way you can see the back end of the deuxième gauge working. So I use this when I use my lathe for lathe work, and I'm going to just measure the shaft here. I've got to get up a little bit closer so I don't screw this up. And like that, that should be good enough. And I go down and dirty. So if you see my nice head with all my hair. So the shaft itself is 6 millimeters. So that's a 6 millimeter shaft. So I'm probably cutting. I'm probably looking for a pivot that's 3 millimeters, and that way when I actually cut, I re-pivot this, I also have to take material off it to get it down. So that was 6 millimeters down. I'm going to stick this down with the broken pivot on the bottom for now. And then I'm going to get another gauge out, a jeweling gauge. Now, there's actually two things I could do here. The first one is just show the big screen. All right, the first thing I could do is I could stick a pivot gauge into here and measure the jewel hole size, because this jewel hole has to go in like that. The other thing I could do is use a pivot gauge to measure the pivot on the bottom of this balance. The only danger of doing that is that any slight move, rotational move or at all, could actually break the good pivot off by measuring it that way. So that's a very dangerous way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is, instead of getting my jewel gauges out, I'm going to get my pivot gauges out and see if I can measure the hole, which might be a better way of doing it. Alrighty then. So here are my pivot gauges, and what are these called? See if I get it right. They're micro jewel gauge. So they're micro jewel gauges. So I always call them pivot gauges, but there they are there of all different sizes. So your typical pocket watch sizes that you're going to deal with here are 0.10, 0.11. So you're looking at 0.010 of a millimeter. Is that right? No, that's 0.10 of a millimeter. And that's 0.11 of a millimeter and 0.12 of a millimeter. These are your typical sizes of pocket watch pivots. And these gauges are pretty darn accurate. That's 0.9 there, so this gauge, this one here, looks like it's broken off, which is not nice. I think if they're broken off, I can fix them, but it's a pain in the butt. But I think because of the size of this thing, it's going to be up here somewhere. I know this one is broken, and I'm going to have to put these in my lathe and make a new gauge size for this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to basically take this and get one of my gauges and see, and basically go and see what fits. The issue I have here is that I'm going to do it under my microscope so I know it actually fits, because I just did this one and it didn't fit. So, but I sure as heck think 0.13 should fit. That's a pretty small hole. But I can't tell if it's gone all the way in unless I'm under my microscope. So let's get the microscope out and do this. Very hard to do, but that's exactly what I'm doing. I'll be right back. A little shout out to Jerome, who helped me immensely by giving me a parts watch, and I grabbed the pallet fork from that parts watch and put this back together, and I burnished the hands on this and everything, and it's just a gorgeous piece. And it's from 1886. I'm so proud of this watch. I'm bringing it to work tomorrow for sure, Jerome. So thanks again. All right, I'm actually under the microscope right now, and I picked out the pivot gauge here at 0.13, and it was way too small. So I'm going to grab another pivot gauge, see if I can grab another one. And the gauge actually has to have a pivot on the end. And this one does. So I pull this one out. I don't know what it is. It's 0.16 it looks like. So that's 0.16. And there I just hold this and then put this in. I'm looking at this through the microscope to see if this is fitting right. And that's too big. So it's too big, and this is one of these Goldilocks things, okay? Now this is 0.15. I'll have to look and see if there's a pivot on the end of that one, and there is. So pick that up. It's a vintage pivot gauges here. And I'm going to measure this one now. So it's 0.15. And I just have to tip it a little bit so I can actually see the jewel hole as I enter this in and see if it fits. It looks like it might be the right size. Hang on. Just have to grip it correctly here. So I can see the jewel hole. So 0.15 is actually too big as well. And now we're going to go down one more. I'm going to put my glasses on so I'm picking the right things here. Hang on. I'm going to let it run for a second. So that was 0.15. So 0.14 is next. Yeah, 0.14 is next. And I'm going to grab that. I want the exact right size so I don't have too much end shake on this, right? Or side shake is what I'm concerned with, not end shake. So side shake will make this thing not work well. This is close as hell, so I'm going to have to zoom in. And I want to hold this up a little higher. I'm going to just move my microscope up a bit so I can hold it higher, and I'm going to zoom in really close, and that way I can actually see the gauge going into the hole. There it is there, and I'm going to grab this gauge here. Geez, I believe that's the right size. Let me look. So that's 0.13. That I think fits, but I'm going to try 0.12. And see if that just drops right down, because this one might fit, but it's really hard to tell if it's just dropping down or just pretending it's fitting. Let me just grab this one here, and there's not much difference between the two. It's a 0.01 of a millimeter difference, so it's very tricky. Alright, this one plunges all the way in. Yeah. So this is going all the way in, and it's 0.12. So this is the right gauge. And if you can see the end of this, you can see the end, and you can see the little tiny end. That's how small this thing is. So that's the right size gauge. So we're going to go with this. So I'm looking at 0.13, this one here, for my pin gauge, and 0.13 and 6 millimeters was the shaft, the actual shaft diameter. So if I look at this, just draw this here. So I've got my shaft for this bounce, and then it tapers down like that, tapers down like that, and then I've got my pivot. So my pivot between here and here is 0, 1, can I draw this backwards? 3, is that backwards? I don't think that's backwards. Let me try that again. 0.13. That's right. There you go. Forget this one here. Anyway, 0.13 there. And then here I've got, between here and here is 6 millimeters. Can I draw an upside down 6? There we go. There we go. So that's 6.0, right, millimeters. 6 millimeters here. So I want to drill this out. This is 0.13 millimeters. So if I can find drill bits, which I have plenty of, that are the right size, these micro bits are 3 millimeters. So 3 millimeters gets me on the inside here, I believe. So if I grab, I'm going to grab another pen of different colors. Can I find another pen of different colors? Yeah. So these drill bits are 3 millimeters. I bought a bunch of these, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to face this off. So go and cut the end off completely. So I'm going to cut this off, and then I'm going to drill into the end here so that it's 3 millimeters in, right? And before I drill, of course, I'll measure that bit against the part just to make sure that there's no nonsense going on. So the part looks like this. This is a shaft. I've kind of faced it off, so now I've got, this is an angled shaft, and I've got my my drill dog, which will make sure that this is the balance. The balance is over here like that, and my drill is going to go in here. First of all, I've got a dog that I have, but the drill will go in right in here, and I'll make a 3 millimeter hole in here. But I also have to find some material that I can either grave it down to 3 millimeters, which is usually the best thing to do, so it fits nicely, or I have something that's the right size. So usually you just take a piece of blued steel, and the blued steel would be bigger than 3 millimeters, right? And then I would cut the blued steel here down to, well, the whole thing down until it fits, friction fits inside this hole, right? And once it's friction fit inside the hole, I can pound it down and pound on it a little bit, and then I have to finish the pivot. So, and make the point pivot, the 0.13 millimeter pivot on the end. So then this is going to end up being, see if I can draw this again, 0.13 millimeters. So, and this hole then I'll cut at, and this is a 3 millimeter hole, right? And then the shaft here is a 6 millimeter shaft. I'm drawing upside down here. So that gives me enough real estate. It gives me 1.5 millimeters on either side of that hole for strength, which should suffice, right? So I should be able to use my pink drill bits and to drill the hole. So we'll see. And I have got to find a piece of material that's the right size. Let me have a look at my stock. So this is my stock. So if I look at the smallest stock I have is right here, right there, and I'm curious what is the distance, what's the diameter of that stock. So I'm going to have to get out my tools to measure that diameter, just so I don't have to work the material too much.